Hi gang, Rob here. Taking a brief break from my brief break. Heidi and the girls and I are down in Sarasota, Florida, staying on Siesta Key, soaking up the sun. Miss you all. Not that much though. I needed a break. But you know, while I was here, I thought maybe we'd pop over into a residential neighborhood here in Sarasota, see a buddy of mine. He might make a couple knives here and then. See if the sign in front of the house might tell you Esnyx. Esnyx. I think this is the shop of one Evan Nicolaides. Let's just pop in here and see if we can see what's going on. Let's see. Anybody home?
How you doing, my friend?
Hey, it's Evan. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you doing?
Good.
Nice to see you.
Thank you. I thought I'd take a break from the sun, stop by and hang out for a little bit, maybe talk a little. Can we do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Welcome to the shop.
Hey, thanks. This is where it all happens, where the magic happens.
Yep, my garage.
So I thought maybe we could sit and talk a little bit and catch the guys up on what's going on with you, and then maybe follow you around the shop and
Yeah, absolutely.
see what you're working on. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we'll get set up here and have a little chat.
Cool.
Back in a minute, guys. Okay, guys, we're ready now to sit down and have a little chat with Evan Nicolaides of Esnyx Knives. How you doing, Evan?
Good. How are you doing, man?
Good. It's mid-July in Sarasota.
Nice and hot.
It's nice and hot. You get a little sun shower every afternoon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just enough to keep up the humidity.
I don't know if you can tell, but I am kind of fried, especially under the shirt. So it's good that I'm indoors this afternoon, taking a little break. So I thought while I was here, I'd come visit and maybe catch the guys up on what's going on in your world.
Yeah.
You making any knives these days?
Oh yeah. Ramping up production big time.
Yeah.
Well, as much as big time as a custom slip joint maker can.
And I think there's some kind of big news, isn't there? Last time we sat down for an interview was almost a year ago at the GEC Rendezvous, and you at that time were making knives in your spare time, and you had a full-time day job.
Yep.
And I thought that was kind of sad, but what's
No,
going on now?
Now I'm full-time making knives.
Full-time making knives.
Yeah, last couple months or so. It's kind of that tipping point, you know. Do I dive into it or settle down a little bit with the knives and focus on a career? But I figured this is what I love to do. I think I can make it happen.
It seems like you've really landed on a peaceful knowledge of where your passion lies and what you want to do as a career. So that's good news for those of us who love your work.
Thanks.
Yeah. So as you've made that transition back into full-time knife making, what have you learned about what you've done in the past and what you need to change and do in the future to make this a going concern, a profitable career?
Well, so a few months ago I sat down and I was thinking, all right, I've been making custom knives for a little over 2 years now, and I'm approaching 50 knives, 50 customs that I've made. This was probably 2 months ago, no, right before Blade Show. And I was thinking, why has it taken me so long to make these knives? Besides the learning curve of it. Excuse me. And then I started looking over the knives that I've made, and I realized that out of those 50, I've probably made 35 different patterns. So with so many one-off knives, figuring out those patterns, figuring out how they're going to work, all of the design work, improving on my designs, improving on the mechanics of the knife, on the aesthetics of the knife, all of that, honing in different skills on how to use different materials, how to properly jig and die bone, how to, get better at soldering bolsters, better grinds, all of that. That was taking me a lot of time. But it got me to a point where I've gotten a lot better at it, and I've kind of narrowed down what I like to make, what I know, my customers like, and I can focus in more on my production, ramp up the efficiency of it, produce more, and get more of my work into more people's hands.
Which more people want.
Yeah.
So do you feel like for the last couple of years you've been on this really steep learning curve, and now it's time to kind of organize your process of making knives with the benefit of all that learning, and now start cranking out some really high quality stuff in volume?
Yeah. I've made the shift of doing the one-off knife. This last batch of knives I did, I put 5 of the same knife on the bench, and I took it every single knife up to the same step all the way along the way, and I've made 5 knives in the amount of time that it would normally take me to make 2 knives.
Right. And since you're not in a place of the old dog where you can charge $3,000 or $4,000 for a slip joint, it's kind of important that your process be efficient. Right?
Yeah, in order to make it a viable business, I need to be able to pay my bills. So that was kind of that tipping point when I made that decision to shift where I was going to take it. That was kind of, if I can make this work, that will be whether I decide to be full-time custom or continue doing what I was doing part-time, working on nights and weekends on knives, and having a career to focus on. Because I do have a family.
I was going to say, that model of life kind of leaves out the family. So,
yeah.
I remember being in that position where, I was working a 55 or 60 hour work week at the car dealership, and then trying to be a YouTube media provider and a professional knife sharpener at night and on the weekends. And my wife came to a point where she said, this has to change.
Yeah.
And it did. And I'm grateful that it did.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you got to a point where you could make that decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it came to that point, I'd come home from work, spend a little bit of time with my wife and my kids, get the kids fed for dinner, washed up, and into bed, and then I would be back in the shop until the wee hours of the morning. My sleep suffered, my, family time suffered from it, but, I made this commitment now for full time. I've ramped up my production. Now I can clock out at 6 o'clock and go and spend time with my family for the rest of the night.
Which is, it's more important than you even realize when you're back in that other thing. Mm-hmm. It just goes by you. You don't even notice you missed it. So good for you.
Thank you.
Should we talk about some of the things that you're working on, and maybe some recent Esnyx designs that have gone out there? I know that there's this thing called a beer buster that's been wildly successful.
Yeah, it's been pretty popular.
Yeah.
I've got one right here. This is the Beer Buster Junior.
Let's see if we can come in on that. I want you guys to take a very close look at this handle material. Evan, what is that?
That is Westinghouse rag micarta. It is very rare and hard to find, extremely tough material, and it is something else. When you catch it in the light, those colors just scream out at you. It's really cool stuff.
It is amazing. So here's kind of the knife. It might look like something familiar, looking at this much of it. Kind of a sodbuster pattern, but then you got this beer bottle shield, and here on the butt end of the knife is one of the raciest looking bottle openers I've ever seen on a pocket knife. Just super cool. And this is the smaller of the two sizes you've done.
Beer Buster Junior.
Beer Buster Junior.
3.5 inch handle, so 3.5 inches closed. And then the full size Beer Buster is 4 1/16, right around there.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
So
yeah, it's a lot of fun. They're great little knives.
They sure are.
Thanks.
And then what do we got sitting here on the table?
Well, this is my first go at a cattle knife. Well, my kind of spin on it. I call this the Longhorn. It's got a Santoku main blade, a coping secondary, and a drop point secondary. And that also has rag micarta.
So not a pen blade, not a pen blade, it's a drop point.
Yep.
So check that out, guys.
And it's got my custom Longhorn shield on there.
So I want to look at all three of these blades individually with you. Check out this main.
That's based on Jared Oster's native design.
Right. But as you said, that blade shape goes back a whole lot longer than Jared Oster. That's a Japanese Santoku in a folding knife. And what a great idea.
It's a great blade profile.
It sure is. And then we'll come back here and grab this coping blade. Open it Mike Latham style. Yeah. And I don't know that you're gonna. This camera's not gonna do this blade justice. 2 swedges on each side of the knife, one at the spine, and then one where that sheep's foot cut comes down. I think you can catch it there. Just a masterfully ground knife blade. And then I love this, not a pen blade, but a drop point. Secondary, how's that? Awesome distal taper in that little blade.
Thanks. That's one thing I focus on a lot with my grinds. I didn't have anybody teach me how to grind a blade. I've never seen anybody else grind one. And it was funny, I posted up a knife for sale on Blade Forums a while back, and somebody commented on the distal taper of my blade. I was like, what the hell is he talking about? What's a distal taper? Then I went and looked it up, and I was like, oh, that's why so many guys have such a thick edge bevel on the end of their knives. They don't have none,
yeah.
Oh, well, I'm glad I was doing something right.
So this is kind of about the point in the video where we would expect, Randy Bell to pop up behind us.
Hey.
You have to bend down a little.
I'll just spread.
This is Randy, the chief engineer. This is the guy that makes Bill Howard's designs actually work, right?
And look good.
And look good.
And look good, yeah.
Basically, without you, he'd be nowhere.
Oh, how the heck can I say that? No, I'd be nowhere. Actually, and I don't know where this is going, but I'm off the thought. If Bill got hit by a truck, we'd be in a world of hurt.
We'd all be in a world of hurt. Yeah. Randy was responsible for choosing the restaurant we ate at last night.
Oh, God, that was I like it. I don't know if you guys, I haven't heard any feedback.
Pennsylvania Mexican.
Hey.
Just get the number 3. You go to El Toro, get the number 3. He's stuck in Titusville while we're down here in sunny Florida.
Very Randy's old stomping ground, actually.
It is Randy's old stomping grounds. And for those of you who don't get the joke, Randy is the engineer for Great Eastern Cutlery, and Evan in my first interview video, Randy just didn't know we were doing an interview, and he just popped up behind us, and we edited that into the video because it was pretty funny. And he's a connoisseur of Mexican food who will be treating us to the number 3 at his favorite Mexican restaurant next month. Looking forward to it, Randy. But we digress. So you got the cattle knife, the 2 beer buster knives, and then I think you got a couple drawings in front of us of upcoming stuff.
Yeah, I've got a couple new designs I'm working on. This one I'm calling the Carpos. It's a slimmer, regular jack, swell end jack. Crammed as much of a blade in there as I could.
So how long will that knife be closed?
3 5/8.
So that's probably to scale.
That's exactly the scale.
Okay.
And I'm probably going to focus more on this lamb's foot blade here.
I think that really does well on that handle.
Yeah. And I wish I had a picture of it closed on there because it just blends in really nicely.
Yeah, you've got the spear closed. But, yeah.
I'll probably offer it in those 2, spear and lamb's foot. And then here's my latest design, the Cuda.
Man, look at this, guys.
So a Quaking blade on a slip joint.
A Quaking blade on a slip joint.
It
sure is.
I think that was 4 inches closed. And again, with the spring that doesn't wrap around, so I can get as much blade in there as I possibly can.
See, here it is. That's beautiful.
Thank you. I think that'll be a fun knife to
What
make.
stock thickness is that going to be?
They're probably both going to be 3/32.
Okay.
So
That'll be
95
a grinding challenge.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I look forward to it. I love challenges in a knife. But those will be two of my main offerings, along with the Beer Buster Jr. and also the Lanny's Gent, which is a gent's knife combined with a Lanny's clip. It's 3-inch closed, you know, with the 3/4 grind on it, with a nice beefy clip point blade in there
That'll
for
be
that
sweet.
small frame. It works well. It takes the idea of a gent's knife and it gives it that extra meat.
Absolutely.
I think it's a great little pattern, but
So what does Tony Bose think of you shrinking his Lanny's?
he likes it.
He likes it?
He likes these new designs I'm doing. You know, I'm taking, being innovative with what he's taught me. So he thought he got a kick out of this one. He
I
liked
know he
it a
did.
lot.
You showed him that at Blade Show, didn't you?
Yeah, he liked it.
Is it true that he used that knife that you just made, the first one of its kind you've ever made, and kind of schooled one of his old buddies on how it should be done? Is that true?
Yeah, a little bit. I didn't hear the whole thing, but I showed him this one, and you know, at Blade Show Thursday nights we'll go up into Tony's room. There's a bunch of different custom knife makers. Everybody's doing a little show and tell, and Tony's kind of sitting in his throne in the corner. And I handed him this knife. He's checking it out, you know. And I'd spoken to him about it before, getting some advice on how to crank that blade, how to fit this in there properly. And so he knew that I was making it for the show. And I showed it to him, and he didn't say a word. He just got up and ran over to a fellow knife maker.
So, guys, when you're making a 3-blade Stockman or a Moore blades or a cattle knife, you got to make those blades work and play well together in the handle. And on that coping blade, look at the kink in that blade. And it came out exactly as it should. And it works well when it's open too. Just a great job. So go ahead, tell us what Tony did.
Yeah, well, he brought it over, and I said to a fellow knife maker, "Look at that cattle knife. That's his first one. How many have you made?" He goes, shut up, Tony." But it was pretty funny. But yeah, I'm really happy with how it came out. I didn't think I'd be able to piece together my first one and make it work. You know, there's a couple changes I'd make to it. For example, on this coping blade, after I had all the parts heat treated, I was trying to figure out how to get it to go past that drop point without touching it. And Tony told me to drop that shoulder in and thin it out. So it made the nail neck smaller.
Yeah.
So now I have to take that into account.
So when you're actually putting the nail nick in the knife, you'll know to do it a little deeper because you're going to remove material.
Yeah, so if I take 20 thousandths off the face, I have to push the nick 20 thousandths in deeper, which will make it consistent with the drop point.
Right.
But as far as my design on paper, this came out really close to it. Which makes me happy because it means less work for me. The better I get this at designing my knives on the computer and translating it into a knife, the less extra work I have to do with making serious adjustments.
Gotcha.
After I've got the parts cut out, and then going back and revisiting the pattern. So I think this was one of the first ones that I've made that translated out that well, and I'm glad it worked on my first cattle knife.
And I imagine, that's something that's going to happen more and more consistently all the time as you get used to how Evan the craftsman relates to Evan the engineer and designer.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of took that knowledge, and now that I'm getting a keener eye for spotting problem issues, because I've been using the same program to design my knives, and every time I make a knife, I can see what issues I have with it, what problems I have with it, and where in the original design, when I design the pattern, where I need to correct those things. A lot of mistakes along the way, but that's how you learn. And as I've gotten better, my designs have gotten better. Everything has gotten cleaner. I know exactly what dimensions I want to put where and whatnot. Make the adjustment points as minimal as possible.
Exactly.
So I save myself as much time as I can, and make it as true to my original concept idea as I can. Which it's nice when it translates out.
Exactly. Yeah, I hear you. So it looks like you've got a lot of things work in progress and on the drawing board. So between now and the end of the year, we should probably see a pretty good number of Esnyx knives available.
Yeah. I'm hoping to. This all goes into my kind of readjustment of my business plan, how to make this a viable business for myself, how to get as much work into people's hands as possible, and not be exclusively producing stuff that I want to make, but also taking on custom orders, because I like to offer customers a chance to get something completely custom built
And
how they want it.
Guys, I hope you're paying attention, because here's how this generally goes. Young up-and-coming maker who's in pretty significant demand wants to make what you want. That'll happen for a period of a few years, maybe, before he gets tired of you. And then he'll finally say, I sell every knife I can make. I'm going to make what I want. Because trust me, it happens. Because we as customers and collectors, we're a pain in the rear. So you've got a window here with Evan, a window where you might be able to actually, work on a custom order that you have some input in. Don't miss it. Don't let the window close, because it will. So we've talked a little bit about your production process and how it's matured and changed, become more efficient. But you said something a minute ago, extremely key, getting knives into people's hands. Let's talk a little bit about, number one, how somebody can see an Esnyx knife when it becomes available, how they can buy it, and then we'll talk a little bit in general about how a custom maker sells knives now versus how that was done in the past. So if a guy wants one of your knives, or a woman, what's the best way for them to find out it's coming and to be able to buy it?
Social media. If you follow me on Instagram, I try to post as many work in progress pictures as I can. So you kind of see when something's going to be available. I'll list it up on Instagram. I'll list it up on my Facebook group, Esnyx Knives. That's where I do most of my posting work in progress, posting pictures of my knives. And I'll also list them on my website, esnyx.com.
Okay.
So,
guys, there will be links to all three of those contact methods, Instagram, Facebook, and Evan's website, in the description below the video.
cool, thank you. Talking about how it's changed for knife makers. It used to be you'd have to go to a show, lay your knives out on the table, and people would come and buy them, hopefully, from you. And it's really hit or miss. Shows can be expensive. They're a huge pain in the butt. Having to sit behind a table, and you've got customers coming by and chicken eyeing and coon fingering your knives. You have to worry about something happening to them.
That's chicken eyeing and coon fingering.
That's this.
Uh-huh.
So, and there's no guarantee that you're going to sell anything.
Right. So you could spend a lot of money on transportation, lodging, booth rental, cost of making your knives, and you could come home with an expense with no revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And taking a chunk out of what you could potentially make selling something online out of your, taking that chunk out of your profits to go to a show. When you can sell something online in 2 seconds and you pay for shipping, you insure it. That's the one time it moves and you're good, and it leaves your shop in pristine condition right into your customer's hand.
Right. So if you've got a social media presence and you've been around long enough and put enough knives in people's hands that people are talking about them, you can pretty much sell everything you can make.
Yep.
Just by doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So, which for a one-off custom maker who's not making a couple hundred knives at a time, where a retailer becomes a feasible outlet for your knives, this is really the way to do it now.
Yeah, it is. I got on Facebook right around a year ago. I started getting in the groups. A lot of people didn't have any idea who I was, what the quality of my work was, because everything that I'd done before that was all on blade forms. There are people that are in these Facebook groups that are on blade form and they recognize my work, but the majority of people did not. So it took me a while to kind of build up that steam.
Right.
Get people to start recognizing my work a little bit, and then at the same time, seeing something in a picture isn't going to tell you that much about the knife. It could look pretty in a picture but have terrible action. Look pretty in a picture but the grinds are wonky. The swedges don't match up. It's not flush. It's not, the hafting isn't there. It's all about having it in your hand. A lot of that also has to do, building a reputation has to do with word of mouth.
Right.
Collectors will talk to each other about what they think about this custom maker. How does this custom maker compare to that custom maker? Is this custom maker's price justified for the quality of their work?
And, I don't want to wade into this topic too deeply, but the traditional online knife forum, and you guys who watch this channel, you know where I'm going. They can tend to be a little parochial, a little bit of a small group with sort of an oligarchy of guys who control them. And man, once you're on the wrong side of those few people, you're done in that forum. Facebook, on the other hand, or even Instagram, it's a lot bigger pool, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot bigger of a pool. You still have those little cliques of people in there, though. That think that they know better than everybody else. But there's another side of Facebook that doesn't translate over to a forum, and it's the anonymity of a forum. Somebody can feel like they can go on a forum and spout off like they know everything, and you're just an idiot. Right. But their face and their name is attached to it.
Yeah. Who knows what's behind that avatar?
Yeah.
With the big attitude.
Yeah.
You have no idea.
And it can, and the forums can be a little toxic at times.
A little.
And it's turned me off of being on there. But it's a necessity for a maker now. It's an absolute necessity. I wish I didn't have to do any social media. I do like. One thing I do really, really like is helping people out. If anybody has questions about a knife, what is this? How does this work? That's where I love to step in, because I'm hands-on every day doing this.
Absolutely.
And I've learned from from Tony and Reese, and from a ton of other makers that I've spoken to that have helped me out along the way. If I don't know the answer, I can find somebody who does.
Yeah. So
I'm happy to share the knowledge. We
could probably say that the social media marketing model that we all have to be in right now, it's probably more good than bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some of it's sometimes we approach it as a necessary evil in doing business, but it is kind of an effective way to put makers and merchants in touch with consumers and collectors in a way that we probably get to know each other better than we ever could before.
Yeah, because you can talk with somebody on a daily basis and get to know them as an individual, where seeing somebody at a show for 10, 15 minutes while they have time to talk to you, you know, you're not really going to get to know them that well.
Yeah.
How often I mean, I know I personally don't talk to people on the phone all that much. You know, there's some people that I do, but I like to be working in the shop. I don't want to be sitting in front of the computer or talking on the phone. You know, there's some stuff that I can do in the shop on the phone, but most of the stuff I can't. I can't run, you know, run a belt grinder talking on the phone with somebody. All they hear is, you know.
I know.
But
I've run into that. You know, I probably could communicate with my subscribers and my sharpening customers more when I was running a car dealership than I can now when I'm sharpening knives 8 hours a day.
yep.
You know, and people, you know, I know this, guys. I've gotten worse about responding to emails since I've been doing this full time. But what's hard to understand maybe is that when you're grinding a knife, or when I've got, you know, somebody's $600 modern folder on my Edge Pro, I can't talk to you, and I can't type an email. I used to be able to multitask in my other form of employment more than I can now. So that's a hard niche to carve out in our work day.
Yeah, and a lot of times, I've got my computer here. I'll hear if somebody shoots me a message. If I'm in between processes, I'll run over to the computer, type out a couple messages. You know, it takes me a couple seconds, but if I'm in the middle of inlaying a shield, I'll mute that sucker.
Oh yeah.
I can't take phone calls. I can't respond to messages. None of that, because one tiny slip and I'm throwing that handle away and starting fresh. And there goes an hour or two more.
Yeah. So we've sort of touched on how your process of making knives has changed, how the process in general, not just for you but for everybody, in marketing your knives has changed. And one thing I wanted to get to before we finish up is, and you know, guys who watch this channel know, I've been a knife collector since I was a little kid. You know, my oldest knife, the one that got me started, was the Buck 110 folding hunter. I've collected and restored fixed blade knives over the years, and I've always owned pocket knives. I never became a passionate collector of those really until I discovered Great Eastern Cutlery. So my YouTube channel it's modern folders, it's fixed blades, it's traditional pocket knives. And I think a lot of people who are in the consuming and collecting world have started to cross those lines now. We've seen in the last few years, as the traditional pocket knife renaissance has started to happen, we've seen some large modern folder makers bring to market what I call fusion knives. So maybe modern materials and appearances, but with slip joint actions. They're trying to make pocket knives, slip joint pocket knives, that still reflect their brand. You know, the Cold Steel Lucky came out maybe 3 years ago, carbon fiber handle, and had sort of a muskrat action at first, 2 blades opposing, and then a single bladed version. And then most recently, the Benchmade Proper, and my Carta handled single blade slip joint. And you know, you guys can be the judge personally of how you think these knives came out, how good they are at being pocket knives. But there's kind of another end of this spectrum. You know, can a traditional knife, and a traditional knife maker, can he come to that midpoint in a fusion knife and make it viable? Have you thought any about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Making a traditional pocket knife that's attractive to modern folder guys.
Yeah, and I mean that has a lot to do with my new designs too. For example, this Cuda design, I think that'll be an attractive package for a modern folder guy. It's a sleek, slim knife. It's a complicated grind. It's got more of a modern handle shape, you know, put a nice piece of micarta on there with a shadow bushing, and shield or no shield, I think that'll be an attractive knife. It's going to be slim,
Super slim
in your
carry.
pocket. You know, there's not gonna, I'm not going to put pocket clips on my knives. It just goes against my nature. But I've seen people that are starting to do that. They're trying to breach that gap between the hardcore traditional knife and the ultra modern. You know, using more modern handle materials, using modern steels, not sticking to stag and jig bone and wood handles. You know, micartas, G10, doing micarta compositions where you use multiple different colors of micarta on a handle. You know, false bolsters on a knife made out of micarta, all that kind of stuff. And I think it mainly has to do with the slip joint renaissance. Great Eastern Cutlery has drawn a lot of people from the massive modern knife market. They're pulling people in towards slip joints because they're making a really good quality knife.
Absolutely.
And you know, there's people that are dabbling in slip joints. They're interested in them, but they want to see those modern materials. They want carbon fiber handles. They want CPM S35 VN blades instead of 1095 or, you know, 440C.
Exactly.
Those high-end steels. And I mean, honestly, does a super high-end steel matter that much on a slip joint? Not necessarily. You know, you have a high-end stainless steel. It's going to wear well. It's going to be corrosion resistant. I like the machinability of them. CPM S35 VN is a very nice machining steel. I can grind with it well. I can hand finish it well.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. That's why I use it.
It still performs well for the user.
Yeah, you know, it does perform. It holds an edge well. It can get really sharp. It's a good all-around steel, and there's tons of stuff out there that's really good. You know, for a semi-stainless, I'm actually going to start using D2. Tony uses it. He's got an awesome heat treat recipe for it, and I mean, as I'm learning more about metallurgy, learning more about these steels, D2 keeps coming up. If you heat treat it well, if you've got the right recipe for it, it can be the best cutlery steel out there. And that's why I'm saying I'll give it a try. Why not?
I'm sort of a D2 fan. You know, it has adequate corrosion protection. I think it takes a super keen edge and holds onto it for a long time, and it's adequately tough.
Yeah.
And it's not super expensive. There are those who think, well, my dear friend Mike Stewart says, D2 takes a crappy edge and holds onto it forever. I tend to disagree with them about that. Believe it or not, I do disagree with them from time to time. So I'm sort of in your camp there. And another thing I wanted to discuss before we go, it seems like the slip joint world up till now, the traditional pocket knife world, has had your production companies of late, Case, Queen, GEC, Canal Street, which is no longer with us. You know, those knives that range between $40 and $150, let's say. And you've had your custom slip joint guys. Those knives could be, you know, $500 to $3,000. You know, and I've thought for a long time, there's a market. You know, these modern folder guys have no compunction whatsoever about spending $400 for a low volume, high quality production version of a custom knife. Is there a market like that emerging in the traditional pocket knife?
Absolutely. I've been talking about this since I got into knives. You know, I kind of came into knives with a fresh slate. I had no idea, you know, I didn't have any, you know, opinions about how things should be, how things are going. I just came in and I looked at the market and I said, there's a big gap right there that is thriving in this market. It's the midtech range, you know.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Mid high-end production knife. Premium materials, premium construction, and there's absolutely a gap in the market there that is bound to get.
And I know that you've been I know this has been percolating for you. That's what precipitated the essential line.
Exactly.
And I know that you've got something cooking, and I know we can't talk about it. And we really can't. But there's going to be something with Evan's name on it, a product line that you're going to see maybe in the next year. That's along these lines. Probably going to be based initially on one of your most successful patterns. I'm excited about it.
I'm really excited. I'm excited to see how it goes. I want to see what kind of quality we can get out of it. And I'm excited to see how the market reacts to it. I mean, I think there's a huge hole in the market that isn't being filled.
Yeah.
And
so what we're talking about
it'll be awesome.
We're talking about a production knife made with an OEM manufacturer that you're going to be intimately involved with. Making, are we going to call them essentials?
No.
No, it'll be something different.
Yeah.
But they're going to be Nicolaides knives made in low volume production to extremely exacting standards. I think that's the biggest opportunity for a knife maker right now is in that market. You know, a low volume, same quality as a custom or darn close to it, production pocket knife that you can buy for what, $300-400?
Yeah. That range, you know, depending on handle material, depending on the complexity of the build, you know, single blade knife for $350 at custom quality.
Yeah. So a knife you might pay $800 for a one-off. So I'll try to keep you guys posted, and I think Evan's kind of going to be on the cutting edge, pun intended, of that emerging market. So I think we about covered everything, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So guys, this will probably be the first video you see from this trip. There'll also be one that we're going to shoot immediately following this one. Just kind of tagging along with Evan around the shop as he works on some stuff that he's got in progress. So that's all for this one. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ, and remember the Word and Esnyx knives are sharp.
See you, folks.
Okay.